All right, folks, let's get into it. We got some huge news. Freeriding has officially been added to the 2030 Winter Olympics. We happen to have a conversation with Travis Rice and Nils Mindnich to discuss it. I think you guys are thoroughly going to enjoy it. But before we get into it, I want to let you guys know some high-level need-to-know facts. So the Freeride World Tour will be hosting freeriding in the Olympics. The Freeride World Tour was purchased by FIS. FIS is the same governing body that does slopestyle, does halfpipe, and it'll be very similar to that. You'll need qualifying points. You'll need to do all their events leading up to it to ultimately get a spot on the team. Now, if you've never watched Freeride World Tour, it's one run format. You're riding down the mountain as is. They don't do terrain enhancement like natural selection. Skiers also share the same face. So it's a little bit different than natural selection. And the venue hasn't been announced specifically, but it will be in the French Alps, which should be fantastic. Also, one last thing. We are doing a giveaway for this podcast. We got a Nitro Phase snowboard right here. Thank you, Silk. Just leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts on Freeride World Tour getting added to the Olympics. We'll pick one at random. We'll send you the board. Silk, don't even play the intro. Let's just get right into the podcast.
I mean, I just got to address the elephant in the room. Everybody wants to know. Nils, Travis, start with you, Nils. Are we going to make a run for it here, knowing that it's going in the Olympics?
Yeah, for sure. Totally, yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
Travis?
I don't know. I'm kind of on the sidelines right now. I'm cautiously optimistic. I want to understand how they're going to run like qualification and format, how much time is being asked, and frankly, what type of event venue they're going to be, competing on, right? Because if it's like a early February, just shaded back, for example, which it won't be, but if it's something like that, then, I don't know. The interest for me is maybe not totally there. But I want to see the event be the best it can. So I don't know. I'm curious. I think there's a lot of other things that I'm focused on in the next 2 years. So I'm gonna work on that, and then we'll see how things are looking in a few years.
Well, I'm just going to go ahead and say I think you should do it, Travis. I'm just going to go ahead and say that on behalf of the United States. I mean, halfpipe, we got Chloe Kim, men's division. We're not looking great. Slope, there's some dogs coming from the Asian contingency and Canadian and Norwegian contingency. I feel like in freeride, we got a shot with you guys. That being said, bench racing, coaches, Team USA, Coonhead. Have we thought about him maybe being the Team USA coach?
I appreciate, I think freeriding's still, young enough and raw enough that I think if we go more the route of like a icon or mascot as coach versus someone that's actually structurally, as Sage likes to poke fun at, out in the backcountry with an iPad taking notes.
That's what we need. Morale booster.
I feel like you try to get Coonhead on the judging panel is sort of where I would see him fitting in. He's in it. He's a part of this. If we're gonna big picture this thing, it's just figuring out. I think he's a judging panel kind of guy because
he could
whole bridge the gap between snowboarding and going big. And he understands how to blend those two worlds.
Well, if it favors going towards rocks and going bigs, he may actually be a member of Team USA at the 2030 Olympics. I think he'd do well. Anyway,
honestly, yeah.
We're going to keep it moving though. Like, let's just talk pros and cons, right? Like thinking about freeriding on the Freeride World Tour, being in the Olympics for snowboarding. Let's talk like hurdles. What are some of the hurdles that this thing faces to, I guess, be a successful event?
Yeah, I appreciate it. And look, I think that the conversation here, right? It's like, it's not if the freeriding should be in the Olympics or not, right? It's the opportunity now is to preserve, what made freeriding appealing for the Olympics to consider it, right?
I think if we're to still also like elaborate, I guess, on what Travis is saying and look at the pros and cons, because it has been, right, like there's been this, there's been the announcement, and then there's been all the follow-up, which is sort of how we've ended up on this conversation today. And it's there are some people who feel like there's some obvious pros, and like there's other parties that feel like there are some obvious cons. And I think a lot of the pros, it's, I see it as like it's a contest, and it might as well just be like an Olympic event if they want to have it be one. Like no matter what way you try to cut it around, you have an event in the Olympics, and it's just that's kind of going to be like one of the more marquee top tier places that sport, or like that category of sport, free riding or slopestyle, half pipe, whatever. That's like your pinnacle, And I think what's unique with free riding is that having additional like optics and eyes and people looking at it because of the Olympic event, I think at least getting more eyes on the culture and the like contest itself, I see as a pro. We obviously can like dive into the cons, which is what can happen to these like wholesome core snowboarding events that get taken or whatever, like controlled or organized by fists, and like how a lot of things get kind of lost or forced out in some way or another. So, I pros, a lot of people are going to see it. Hopefully there's more interest in freeride snowboarding and it gets people stoked. Cons, hopefully there aren't too many iPads in the backcountry,
Well said, Travis.
I mean, look, there's definitely both. I think, addressing the cons piece, right? I think being on the older head side of the coin here, and a big reason that I think it's a controversial topic within, our circles is essentially, there was 15 years where, the FIS went head to head and made a coordinated effort to undermine core snowboarding. And they didn't collaborate. They didn't want to work with any existing events or any like industry leader. There was no consideration for the culture, and it was a pure like take, not, there was no give, right? And they undermined and intentionally held events on the same time as like the marquee events for our culture and sport. And this happened over multiple Olympic cycles. I think that there's a lot of bad taste in the mouth from, FIS's involvement within snowboarding, and rightfully so, frankly. They blew it repeatedly. And, the events were often, the first Olympic event, right? It was a pretty terrible event. They kind of nailed Salt Lake, which was beautiful. But then, the next event, they were again in the wrong size half pipe. They were behind the times. So they continued to like hold these events that were tricky. I mean, even look at last year's, big air and slope event in Italy, right? Where it was like people couldn't get speed for the course. The big air, it was too small for the type of, progressive tricks that were happening. So there's definitely things to be, critical about. I will say that, one thing that has been said that is, I think, absolutely worth mentioning in this, topic is, I think it goes for, for snowboarding, skiing, freestyle skiing, at least, free riding for this matter, but, skating, surfing, like across the board, these new sports that roll in, the Olympics needs these cultures more than these cultures need the Olympics. And I think that's proven itself out over the years in the kind of give back component of what it does. I'm pro-Olympian, and I sometimes challenge the Olympics, but I'm pro-Olympian. I think the pros are multiple, right? I mean, more awareness. I think there's hardly any events that happen on natural playing fields. It's like sailing maybe, and then surfing. There's not much though. And so I think when it comes to, and I love, a great Olympic half pipe competition and what it brings an athlete to, but how aspiring is an Olympic half pipe? It is so incredible to watch. And it's like watching, human potential and what the body and mind can do. However, what aspirational components come with it? Like, you want to go fly to China to ride that half pipe, or it's almost like makes it like, whew, that is aggressive if you want to peak out in that sport. And so I think that the fact that this connection with natural conditions, this outdoor experience, something that has an aspirational component of trying to turn and just do a turn in soft conditions, or seeing simpler tricks executed in difficult places on the mountain that are more easy to empathize with. If it's going to motivate people to get outside and go have in real life experiences with friends, then it's like a net benevolent benefit for this thing to land in a bigger, wider region. I think that you just can't expect like a big give from that side. Now, the one thing I'll note, Freeride World Tour and the people that put that on are behind it, who've been a part of it for quite some time, like Nicholas Halewood, CEO, you got Lolo, you got, a group of people that really care about freeriding. And, the fact that the Freeride World Tour was purchased and the FIS didn't try to start their own thing and undermine everything that was happening, like that's even a step in the right direction. And the fact that those key players are still at the helm gives me hope. Even though they struggle to line the conditions that they're trying to, like they know what great freeriding is. And as long as they're allowed to try to nail it as best they can and aren't restricted too much, that's where my optimism comes in. It's people that know freeriding.
Travis, what you were saying, and I was going to try also say this, is that if you go back to that, we'll call it the 15-year period of FIS going head to head with TTR and all these other organizations, and kind of having this undermining experience or effort, whatever you want to call it, the fact that like, it's not like there was all these numerous different freeriding like events going on. There wasn't like a bunch of them. For the most part, it's all been, for a long time, it's just been the Freeride World Tour. And there's a pretty clear like pipeline, which I think's pretty cool in some regards. Like there's a clear pipeline to go from a qualifier event as an average Joe and then have a fair shot of like working your way out to the tour. But it's always been this like one thing. And the fact that that's what FIS kind of purchased, and they're not trying to create like a new schedule for riders to have to pick one or the other. Again, as you were saying, that gives me some hope that like we're not going to get scattered. We're hopefully going to consolidate freeriding events and what freeriding is, and it's going to be just be like more efficient and hopefully have like a better outcome for everybody.
Yeah, well said. And I'd like to add to that too, Nils. Like I learned a lot about freeriding in the past few days in the Freeride World Tour, and did a lot of research, and learned that it's also like it's skiers and snowboarders, and these things cost somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million to put on one freeride event. That being said, there's 2,000 competitors globally, so freeriding is like a pretty small community. And I think when you look at skiing, the bar is pretty high. Like the skiers are kind of chucking, and I would say that the snowboarding is a little bit more of a low end pro. Like the goal for snowboarders in the mountains, from at least my perspective, is that they want to end up in natural selection and maybe filming a video and things of that. And there are some badasses in there, but it's not like when you watch Ayumu do a triple cork 40 feet out of the pipe, right? So I think like some of the benefits of it are like the progression of freeriding, right? Naturally, the bar will get raised. One of the cons is also that like a lot of the money for the Freeride World Tour is skiing companies that support the Freeride World Tour. So oftentimes like the trick of the day is presented by a ski company so that they have to give a skier trick of the day, or some of the politics that I've learned about through this. So it's kind of interesting, skiers, snowboarding, sharing the same face, things of that nature. But ultimately, I do think that like the progression of freeriding stands to improve, which is good. Are we going to see airbags? Like, is like China going to build a facility with like downhill bristle takeoffs into airbags? Like, I don't know. I would love to see that though,
Just
are
an
they going to
airbag
groom
step
the next
down.
gen? Yeah,
Just an airbag step
downs.
down. But it's like
Yeah.
there's like full there's like rocks around the takeoff or something, and you have to like
Yeah.
pre-ollie. You're just dialing in
100%.
cab fives and front 30s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
if history's shown us anything, it's don't underestimate what's possible when it comes to like where free riding goes. I think a big part of it is the venue is such a key. The venue and conditions are such a key part of it. I mean, just look at the lineage of the perfect parallel is like half pipe, the quality and size of half pipes, and what does that allow half pipe riders to do. It's such a key piece. And when we did our first event in 2008 in Jackson, the first natural selection, my biggest takeaway from that was, okay, seeing so clearly how limiting terrain can be, or how beneficial terrain and conditions can be. And that's why we spent 5 years looking for the right place where we could go and actually, develop and enhance and improve a venue. And, if we could have it our way at natural selection, it would be, hey, natural venue, we don't have to do anything. And there are definitely venues that exist in the world that you don't have to touch it. I think we touch it not out of the sake of we just want to, contort and add. It's just, how do you balance a good venue? How do you present a world-class venue and weight it correctly so that, everyone just doesn't want to go on the best line? Provide enough like creative optionality. And so I'm really wondering, the future of these events, and inevitably they're going to have to do some work. And part of it too is making things safer, frankly. Free riding is brutal and hazardous. And a big part of like what we've attempted to do is try to, if we're going to ask people to compete and push limits on a venue, like what can we do to, improve blunt force trauma injury prevention?
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, totally. And I'm thinking like, if we're looking at this in maybe the most positive scope, or maybe the how do you get the best snowboarding out of free riding? And I'm wondering like, if FIS wanted to make the decision, or I don't know, if someone wanted to make the decision to say like, hey, we got to amplify this experience. Like, look at where filmed backcountry snowboarding is. Look at the level of riding at NST, and obviously in all these other sports. Like, maybe it's time we touch the venue, and like, or riders can like, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'm not sure if that will change, but as Travis was saying, like, and having done the Freeride World Tour a few times, like the venue selection is such a crux. And then you combine that with rideable snow conditions, and like, even with NST, and like Travis, you can obviously expand on this a ton. And as you just said, like even with the Revelstoke course, it's like there is such a months, year-long cohesive effort to build out features in the summer, to mitigate as much snow risk through the winter, and like just to get that course to where it is for us to do what we want on it is so much work. And then with free riding, if it was a perfect world, there'd be a bunch of venues because weather and snow is always awesome. But like the reality is that, I don't know, like thinking back to like Pyeongchang in 2018, I'm like, dude, where would they have done? I don't know where they would have done like a free ride event, and like, would it have been good, or would it have been the equivalent of, this is the negative route, FIS essentially saying like, it's a 12-foot half pipe this year, sorry guys, or like, I don't know. That'll be an interesting one. I'm not worried about what the venue will be in France and in 2030, and I think Utah in 2034. There's a lot of cool options as well that will like lend itself to good snowboarding. Beyond that though, like there for sure will be places that it could be a challenge, because you need an entire mountain, like it's a lot of space. So
Travis?
I mean, yeah, I think we'll see. Wonder what 2038 holds. 2042.
Stop.
Yeah, I mean,
Travis, how old will you be in 2042? I think
that's only 3 Olympic cycles away, man. And these days, I mean, the injectable peptide game, as well as, cold plunge colonics,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's never underestimate what's possible.
But going back to what you said, Nils, if you look at like surf, you had I think it was Japan Olympics, like the waves were really small, not that fun to watch. But then it went over to Chopo and it was firing. And like that was an exact example of the terrain dictating a great event.
Yeah. And you know what, maybe that's also part of the message too at these things. And I think that's probably the coolest layer. This is like the naturalist in me, whatever. This is the granola in me. Is like snowboarding doesn't happen in a stadium, and like there are so many undefined, uncontrolled variables that you just kind of have to like roll the dice and like adjust with as you go. Freeride snowboarding and skiing is probably the most like amplified version of that if we're breaking down all the different types and controllability of a venue. So hopefully it's like blower and sick and we don't have to worry about rocks. But like there will be a year that you probably do, and it might just like people have to understand that that's just part of the sport and the culture, and like there'll be another one and it'll be better, and then it'll be 2042 and maybe Chris decides to go for it. Who knows?
Listen up, people. We're talking about something really important. I got a question for you guys. Now, are you getting a little older, starting to slow down a little bit? You were once a young, spry stallion. Now you're a bit of an old bull, not bouncing back quite as fast. Well, I got a solution for you, and that is Bubs Naturals Creatine Monohydrate. As you get older, you got to focus on recovery, and creatine is great for that. It's great for muscle growth. It's great for recovery. It's good for the brain. I've noticed a personal difference for me as I've gotten older, 100%. People always hit me up and they're like, Chris, you like the Bubs creatine? I'm like, hell yeah, take it on daily. I'll send you my recipe I use for the smoothies. It's fantastic. The thing about the Bubs creatine that's really important is that it is truly pure. It's the gold standard of pure creatine monohydrate. A lot of the other products out there are certified garbage. So if you're interested in getting some Bubs, head on over to BUBS. That's bubsnaturals.com. We got a promo code that's 20% off if you use promo code BOMBHOLE. They also got hydration packs. They also got collagen, all kinds of good stuff. Bubsnaturals.com. Use promo code BOMBHOLE. We'll get you sorted out. Okay, people. We're going to talk about what is one of my favorite products that I use on a daily basis, and that is the Turtlebox Ranger speaker. This thing I keep in my house. I listen to music on it every day. Here's what I like about it. It's got 12 hours of battery life. It's smaller than the other Turtlebox speaker, so you can bring it with you. It's got magnets on it. You're going golfing? Bing! Put it on the side of the golf cart. You got tunes all day long. It's also waterproof. So you can take this thing up on hill on a snowy day, blast some tunes in the parking lot, bring it out on the boat if you got one of those things. It's also drop, crush, and dust proof. It's got stainless steel attachment points, and it's perfect size to bring anywhere you want to go. So if you want to check out the Turtlebox Ranger, it's a great gift for the holidays, great gift for any loved one. Check it out at turtleboxaudio.com. All right, people, we're talking Yeti Rambler food jars, okay? They keep the hot stuff hot and the cold stuff cold. You're eating some oatmeal? You want to keep it warm all day? Get yourself a Yeti Rambler food jar. Oh, you want to do overnight oats and you want to keep them cold all day? Also, do a Yeti Rambler food jar. They come in size 8 ounce, 16 ounce, and new whopping 24 ounce food jars. They're great for all occasions. They got the double vacuum insulation that holds the temps in there. 100% leak proof mag vent allows you to throw it in your bag without worry. So go to Yeti.com, get yourself a Rambler food jar. You'll be happy you did it.
You know, I've been claiming that we're going to do a East Coast event one of these years because it's possible. You know, you think you need this crazy, like untouchable, super rare type of face to do it, but really you just need effort, capital, creative problem solving. And, you know, currently, sure, we're limited to them chipping ice or blowing man-made snow in areas like China that don't really have, at least the east coast of China, that don't have natural snow. But I mean, I think that it wouldn't even be that huge of a problem to figure out how to blow a bigger crystalline structure out of a tube. It's just physics.
Maybe that's the maybe that's the big picture here. They've been making the wrong snowblowers the whole time. Like why can't we just make a powder snowblower?
Why don't we make powder snowblowers?
It's just been solid the entire time. Like,
You
what
just
are we
need
doing here,
a
Travis?
longer tube that is less violent, like the spray, just the droplet freezes instantly into like a ball. If you just have a longer incubating cycle for the droplets, crystals, that stellar crystal to expand in a radiant direction, and it gets a little girth and is allowed to fall soft, you have soft snow.
Oh, we're talking hydrology here, aren't we?
okay, yeah.
I love it.
I mean,
Nils can
in
figure this out.
mines
Engineering
in
degree.
Africa, they figured out how to get water to freeze at a higher temperature for cooling working environments.
God damn. I love it. I mean,
Okay.
the one
Well, I
thing
think
I
if I've
did,
taken anything away from this, is that we just gotta bring in a PAL snowblower.
yeah,
I'll order 10.
that's
We'll start there,
key.
and then we'll go from there.
I do know that the Freeride World Tour, on a more serious, less fun note, they're like very, very serious. Like the Euros are not down for terrain enhancement. I don't think that this is terrain enhancement, though. I think this is just snow coming. You're not like making a kicker under the snow or with the snow. You're just putting more snow on the mountain.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, just to make a note on that, I think that it is the sacred, component, right? We've done multiple events where it was fully natural terrain, right? A bunch of the venues that we rode, kind of backcountry up in Revy, Alaska, like a lot of these places are full natty venues. I think it's amazing when you have the conditions aligned to do that, but if it's at the compromise of allowing riders to showcase what they're capable of, that's when I'm like, look, the spirit of free, like, you're out putting pat downs, you're improving transitions, that's part of like moving through the mountains for a lot of people. So I think it's something that I appreciate and I hold to high regard, but to be like a fanatic about that hard line, for me, it's just.
Yeah, that's kind of where I arrived to, and I think it was really interesting when I joined the tour, because I had never was like aware of this culture before of like like not like no terrain enhancement, and like there's this like pure like connection that some of these free riders have to free riding, and why it is like the purest form, like of skiing or snowboarding, because there's no interjections or whatever. And I think that's really cool, and I love that. But I also think that like if you're trying to create that as a contest and put dates around it and have everybody show up to do that thing, then like I could understand why you might want to entertain allowing like some form of like a terrain enhancement or something. So is that going to happen? I don't think so. It's definitely probably not for the first one, but like I suppose I just kind of wanted to address, I think I was seeing some people that were upset about the cons on it taking away from the spirit and the freedom of free ride and this, that, and the other thing. But, I think at the end of the day, it is a contest that we all decide to enter with judges, and it starts at a certain time and it'll end at a certain time. And like, we're all signing up for it, and if people aren't, and people of the community aren't into that, like you can go over there and like still free ride, that's the cool thing. We're just trying to figure out how to like create an event of it, which most of the time it does turn into a pretty cool event. So I'm hopeful that like it'll be rad.
Well, and side note, as a organization running these events, it is a lot more work and effort to modify and manage terrain. It is a whole other world of challenge, difficulty, planning, doing it right, time, resource.
Yeah.
Travis, what is like what is the natural selection's like official position on this event?
I mean, I would say cautiously optimistic is a good way of putting it. I mean, I think that holding what I think to be are the best events in the freeriding space. I think that it's great. It's good for the elevation of what it is that we believe in, right? And I'm hopeful that the Olympic format, recognizes and rewards the qualities that NST holds dear. Our take on it is how do we help it thrive? Right. I speak occasionally with Nicholas Hale Woods, and I think we'll continue to kind of offer our assistance. We want to work with them. I think it's great that the Freeride World Tour exists. It's a great kind of dichotomy between what the two of us are doing. We kind of have different goals of what our purpose is, right? And ours is not to necessarily be like the rigid governing body of freeriding that inevitably has to compromise all elements of how we run our organization to fit within, the boxes needed to have, the points interface with USADA and drug testing and all the regulations, So I'm really grateful that Freeride World Tour is what it is and has put the time in to it. I think that the stance, from natural selection is I think it's a bit like, yeah, we're proud that what we've spent almost 20 years putting our effort into is something of value to an event like the Olympics. So I think, time will tell, right, how it rolls, but we're going to keep on our path. I don't think it necessarily changes our direction or what we prioritize. And, at the end of the day, it's a relatively small community, and, we aspire to work harmoniously and seamlessly.
Well said. I think it's like also one of those things where you just lower the expectations. Like, like they're probably shit's gonna probably go wrong. We're gonna be disappointed. Like you watch slope style, the poor girls couldn't get over the jumps. They spend their whole life for this moment. They didn't even build a course that worked. We're ultimately gonna be disappointed, but at the end of the day, there'll probably be some cool stuff that happens. Maybe one of our friends wins, they get to go on a talk show and they get to have an Olympic gold medal. Like that's pretty cool. And I think like if we can all just like lower the expectation and just maybe be like, it's probably getting pretty clunky. Like then it'll be all right.
I think that an event of this magnitude and scale, if we can maybe hijack the marketing and messaging around the Olympic event itself, because I want to see it run under great conditions. I want it to be awesome. We at Natural Selection have often still the like envision prime conditions. And, there's a funny analogy, I guess, within the realm of solar eclipses. So the solar eclipse is something that I think it's one of the most anticipated, like benevolent, natural occurring events that happens. Now, what's the greatest challenge with it is, will there be cloud cover or will there not be? And there is a disproportionate amount of high pressure and good weather over populous areas during solar eclipses. And what I'm getting at is when you start to look at like collective consciousness and this disproportionate weather around places of population, because solar eclipse, if you're in the path of a solar eclipse, like 3 to 4 years in advance. It is something that is so hyped up. People fly out from around the world and everyone is just envisioning without even knowing, like watching this with clear skies. And it's a crazy disproportionate amount of good weather that happens during that. Now, what I'm getting at is the Olympics is such a big thing that there's so many people envisioning like prime conditions. I think we might be able to just biohack this thing into running under good conditions. So
Okay.
we'll be there to help. Nicholas.
We're going to manifest this. God, I like it.
Good call.
Fucking good
also
call.
Good call. Yep. Powder snowblowers and manifest in good conditions. Kind of the men who stare at goats approach, but I love it. We're gonna do a little cloud bursting today, guys. It's a hazy layer. Just make it go away. Think about it. I like that. I like that theory. And there's something to that too. I mean, dude, what was it, 22 NST at Jackson? You gathered us all in a circle, and we were like chanting and screaming. And do you remember this? Sure you do.
Yeah.
Maybe you just do it so often. You have so many good conditions.
No, I remember it. And what happened?
Blower, sunny, pow, great conditions.
Yeah. These things really, really help with a good forecast too. Side note.
Dude, we got to get everybody together and do some big time chanting for this thing. Chanting
Yeah.
circles.
I
think that's the ticket.
there's one way I could capture this. It's collective consciousness. I think it's
Have we
what we're
thought about tapping in with any shamans as well to kind of get them involved, Travis?
I mean, that there's some, chiseled, tan, rough chin French alpinists that are shamans in their own right of the alpine, ski scene in France. I would say,
Yes, I can agree. I'm currently in the French Alps, and I can 100% agree. You described that guy, and I was like, I see them every day. Like, they're all over the place.
because we don't know what venue that this is taking place on yet, right?
If I were to like speculate, I could also just give like a quick, maybe like, I'll try shoot for a 1 minute run a show of like how I see this kind of going down.
Drop the what's known.
And I think it has not been officially announced, but I'm pretty sure my hunch is that it'll be at Val Thorens, which has a reputation for being pretty rocky, but also has really sick terrain. So that'd be cool. It's also where Victor de la Rue spends his winters. So kind of a bad boy area. As far as like how people are going to qualify for it, I think there's been I feel like I've seen some confusion on that from the maybe core snowboarding route. But essentially to qualify for an Olympic event, it has to have points. It has to be a FIS event. It has to be a World Cup, So how I see this going down is that the Freeride World Tour has done one World Cup, and then they'll probably, my guess, and it'd be cool to get like a more formal opinion, is that just like each Freeride World Tour will become its own World Cup. And like those will be the points that like riders will kind of get seeded for to get their spot for the Olympics. As far as like, I don't know how the U.S. team is going to set up a U.S. freeride Olympic crew and all that stuff. But as far as like, you'll have to do FIS events and get points. That will be Freeride World Tour events. They'll probably be, your like filter in years of doing like Freeride World Tour qualifiers or Challenger Series, whatever. And then I guess it would be in the season of 2029, how like the rankings shake out is probably what will determine the like roster for 2030.
So
most
I
likely in
spoke with
Valserans. That's
I
my
spoke
impression.
with Brennan Metzler, who worked over at the tour for a long time. I think still does, but he kind of filled me in on that selection process as well, as exactly what you said. I think you need to have at least 2 top 30s in points rankings. The U.S. should have 2 to 3 spots per gender, depending. It has to do with how many people in each country are doing well, right? But it should be 2 to 3 spots. And he said that they're still trying to figure out, there may be a kind of like team selection that is not based on points. In addition, like you can select somebody based on the coach or the team. Let's say you get
Coach's
2 top
discretion.
30s. Coach's discretion. That's what I was looking for. So they haven't shaken that out yet, but that may be a thing in addition to points as well, which could change things a lot.
Which, to take it one step further, and shout out to Liam Griffin. He's our data analyst and pure snowboard, like king snowboard nerd when it comes to these things and events. And I get a lot of my detailed information from him. He's our specialist over at Nacho Selection. But there's something called the WSF, which is the World Snowboard Federation, and then the WSPL, which is, I think, the World Snowboard Points List. And these things operate, I believe, separate from the FIS. They're not owned by the FIS. That's something where, there's certain events might be able to, that are outside of this World Tour, garner points. And then, like you're saying, coaches can potentially, pull from that list. It doesn't have to be direct from, a rider's results on a World Tour. However, I think those are the spots that are needed to be earned directly from the World Tour, right? But there's not a lot of, my understanding is I think it's potentially 44 riders. So 11 male, 11 female ski, 11 male, 11 female snowboard. And I think one of my kind of gripes is I think they probably try to do this and, boil it down to like a 2-hour show. And so that's going to be a single run. And then on top of that, like what other events do you have like two distinctly unique disciplines that are like have to go together?
Like skiing, and it would be like surfing and boogie boarding going together.
And you just kind of like judge them separately. You're like, okay, boogie board top 3.
But I mean, right? Like
Yeah.
it's something, and maybe this is a year one, component.
Well,
like,
I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, it won't it doesn't happen at the same time, but I suppose you run the event at the same time. But like, there's ski pipe and ski slope style, but obviously those happen on separate like.
But it's
timelines.
a separate focus, right? It's a
Yeah,
separate
yeah.
day with an event that you get a couple runs, you focus on like, the ski competition, boom, it's its own thing. Versus, and I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe it will be done like that. I don't think anyone knows what the final format will be, but I think it'll be together.
Yeah, yeah. So I think a big part of it is powdered snow blowers, good vibes. Not gonna want to leave good vibes
Chanting.
for night chanting, and weather, and then
Bristle airbags.
Bristle airbags, and then waiting. Probably fondue too, just to play it safe. You're gonna want to throw some cheese in there.
Yep. Well, I think we got to the bottom of it. I think I'm more confused than I was when we started. So I think we definitely figured out what's going on with the Freeride World Tour.
That's great. That's a good sign for any project.
Yeah, should be good. Looking forward to the airbag, the natural. We got, you know what? We just got to build
How do you set it
a
up?
snow dome. What's that?
Yeah, how do you even set it up? Where does it go?
You gotta actually, it should just be a giant scaffolding, downhill bristle takeoff, rocks littered amongst the takeoff you have to weave through, and then maybe just 40 feet into a back so you can practice those downhill back threes through rocks.
I love it. It's a blind takeoff. I was like, how do you train for, it's like, if someone actually asked me, how do you train for it? And I was like rocky blind takeoffs is where I struggle personally to feel confident. And so I think you just recreate that. The rocks are foam or cardboard. The snow is bristles. The landing's an airbag. I like it.
Yeah.
We'll save that for the second update. Give me 2 years. Give us 2 years. Yeah.
And those things are expensive. If you want the cheap option, right? All you do is the simple. You buy a ladder, preferably about a 20-footer, lean it up against the side of your house, and, start jumping off from 2 feet onto like flat concrete. Then go up another rung, 3 feet, 4 feet, 5, and you're just training to where you can get to like 18 feet repeatedly, just jumping off and landing on concrete without breaking your legs. It's maybe, I think, one of the most.
God, this guy has so many good ideas. Jeez.
I mean, look, I agree.
It's incredible. Let's keep going, buddy. I love this.
Dynamic venue. I think it's one of the more interesting venues on the Freeride World Tour for sure. And that place with good conditions could be.
I mean, I've ridden around that resort. It's sick. If there's snow, it makes everybody look good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
how would you train?
It was literally scaffolding bristle, like we talked about. But it's interesting watching the World Cup. I had this kind of like mental note thinking about like, I don't watch soccer. I don't care about soccer. Once every 4 years, the World Cup's on. I'm like, well, I'll tap in here. And, luckily, like the first couple rounds, they're bad. I was like, soccer kind of sucks. And then by the end, like when all the really good teams are playing, you're like, okay, these guys are weapons. Like, this is fun. And I think, when the competition level's high, it's really good, for soccer. And it's like snowboarding's the same thing. Once every 4 years, the mainstream's like, oh, let's watch this snowboarding thing. And like, if it's high level, it's great for snowboarding. If it's low level, you could potentially have like the breakdancing situation, like in the Olympics. Remember like how the one breakdancer that was basically a meme for being so bad at breakdancing, and it kind of like set breakdancing back like 5 years. So I hope that doesn't happen. But even if it does, none of that shit really matters. We'll still be here. The free riders will still be there doing their thing, going to the free ride world. We're all still going to snowboard. It doesn't really affect our love for the game in any way, but it's fun stuff to speculate on.
Yeah, totally.
All right, we did it. Final thoughts? Closing thoughts?
Let's start building this dry course.
Yep. I like it.
Pretty simple.
Team USA weapons. We do a little bench. I mean, we got Big Air Chair, BMO, Travis, Nils, the Ferguson brothers. Torstein's damn near American citizen at this point. He's just Norwegian, but he's been here for a long time.
However, Norway's got some deep pockets, and you know how these country alliances that tend to happen with the different countries, where it's like, it becomes a bidding war on an athlete riding for one country or another, and it's like 7-figure bids certain ways. So if you're considering this and you got some skill and you happen to have dual citizenship, could be very financially beneficial to play that game and which country you're going to ride for.
China spends some money, it seems like.
With only 11 men and 11 women, like the spots are going to be, like I can't imagine U.S. is going to get 3 of those spots. I think host country gets a bonus spot. I could see France having 3, but.
Yeah, I'd put Coonhead at my number 1 seed. I'll just kind of stand by that. And then,
I didn't even mention Sage if he does it.
You know what? I think I was watching some of Mason Jar's clips of just kind of taking some slams and going big from the Airtime podcast that he just did, and I feel like you get him and Kuhn, and they're feeding off each other, and it's a solar eclipse, and Travis is there yelling in the corner, and like there's pow, like everything's lining up how it should. I'm nowhere to be seen. I don't stand a chance at this point. And those 2 guys, I mean, that's 1 and 2. The end of the story there. Yeah.
I mean, Mason has proved that he is not afraid to put technical and dynamic tricks into flat, hard landings, which I respect the hell out of him for.
Which honestly is an incredible trait for the Freeride World Tour. So if I was a recruiter, I would probably be approaching him and asking him, "Have you thought about your future, son?"
I'm excited to see what it's going to bring out from people, because if you look at like Victor, who's been dominating the Freeride World Tour of late. I mean, it annoys me because he's doing it with backflips and 360s, and I know he's got back radio 7s and like all these other amazing tricks that he just will not do because he doesn't need to do them. And I'm always just like, come on, man. I know you're so much more dynamic than this. Come on.
And that's where you come in, Travis, is you start doing them with us together, and we go in there and we just wreak havoc.
Mm-hmm.
And then we probably get hurt, and then we're back to square one.
Nils, earlier you mentioned aim for the rocks as your strategy. Thinking about that, I don't know if you guys have ever spent time with Bjorn Linus in the mountains, but it's almost like a rock magnet. He really does aim for the rocks. So,
dude,
he may be in his mid 50s by this time. I don't know how old he's at. But
yep.
He's somebody to consider, I think.
Yeah, I guess you just got to think of riders that perhaps are the most comfortable with hitting rocks, and maybe that's maybe the podium. If we're, being patriotic here, is we kind of got the Bjorn, Mason, and Coonhead in the mix.
Yeah.
I like that. That's all. That'll be my. I guess that's my stance for now.
All right, I think we did it. We're gonna fucking throw a bow on the show. Thanks for chatting with me, guys. It was incredible. Travis, appreciate you as always. Nils, thank you for all the insight. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Appreciate the opportunity, Chris.
Ciao.
Keep doing good work.